I want to build a team that not only can support KC, but hopefully can also support our other business ideas and other projects that we want to pursue. And so that was why it was so important to me to make sure that this core team felt really strong, not just for KC, but for other things that we want to do as well. Yeah, so that kind of sparks up our newest business endeavor, which is a software program we're calling DM.
Super excited to be here today. We are currently in Cape Town, South Africa. My wife and I, Colleen, came in, and today we're having a beautiful conversation with Kai, and super happy to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
We actually linked up with Kai, so I'm part of the course and community that Kai was a co-founder of, and it's just been an incredible experience. And it's honestly one of the big reasons we're here today in Cape Town. Colleen and I, we traveled all this way, not only to see this beautiful area, but to link up with Kai. We did a hike, which was incredible, to Chapman's Peak, and it's just been a beautiful experience.
Yeah, it's so sweet getting to meet you guys in person. And yeah, like that's such a special part of Kolder Creative to me, is getting to meet the community in real life and not just through the digital world.
Yes, and given a little context, Kai is the co-founder of Kolder Creative, and this is just been a huge spark in my own journey as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, and I thankfully got to meet Kai and Sam as well in Dallas. We had a meetup, which really kind of opened my eyes to the power of community, the power of creating something bigger than yourself. And that's a big reason, honestly, why I wanted to have this conversation with you today, to kind of get an inside look at how it was like building a team, how it was creating something that encourages, inspires, and moves individuals. And so before we get to digging into Kolder Creative, the business, kind of your journey, I want to hear about a little bit about you and kind of like Hawaii. I heard that you grew up there, and just give us a little bit, how was it growing up on that island?
Yeah, growing up in Hawaii, the pacing was very slow. And ever since I can remember, I always just had this like entrepreneurial drive within me. And so the pacing was actually quite like polar opposite for what was going on within me. And, but yeah, like the lifestyle there, very beautiful, super blessed to live in such a safe and yeah, like a true paradise. But at the same time, I knew from a really young age that like the pacing was just so slow for me. And I felt so driven to, I don't know, it was just like going into different entrepreneurial endeavors. Starting at like the age of 6, I was, doing lemonade stands and then selling produce and doing all kinds of things any weekend or like free chance I had that I wasn't in school. I remember, I think it was at the age of 6, I told my dad that I wanted him to open me up a savings account at the bank. And I had him take me in, and he like, because I couldn't do it on my own at that age. And yeah, they set me up a savings account. And yeah, I just remember like from that age, like being very focused on that world. And I know this to be true because then later I was looking back, like, was I actually that young? And when I was back in Hawaii visiting, I went to the bank to do some paperwork, and they were like, "Do you still work at Kula Elementary?" And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh my God, that's my elementary school." Like my dad had to put that down as my employer because I was so young. So yeah, I knew like I was really grateful to be living in Hawaii, but at the same time, I knew that I was going to move away after high school and kind of find a place that was more at my own pacing of just business. And yeah.
Wow, I think that's so interesting at like such a young age to do that. And you said that like your parents, there wasn't really an entrepreneurship influence. It was just something that always caught your eye. Where do you think that came from? Is there anything that you would, draw that back to at all?
Yeah, I really don't know. My grandmother has always been a huge inspiration and muse for me. She actually started a wellness center back in Hawaii, which my parents were working for. So she has this entrepreneurial side for sure, and also this sense of community gathering, which I think was like a really core inspiration for me. But the whole like trying to make money, like if I wasn't selling lemonade, I was like using those, do you remember those papers that you would roll coins with? Like
Yes, yes, yeah. Yeah.
like that was like my thing that I would do in my spare time. Like it's just so strange.
I love
So
that. I love
yeah.
that. A similar, I always love the wrapping coins as well. And so I always had that entrepreneurship itch of like, okay, oh, you got all your coins, I'll wrap them up and do all this stuff, which
Yeah.
is cool. And so, yeah, so you had this, like you said, it was kind of like a polarity of the slow life of Hawaii, but inside felt like you were called to something else or somewhere else. How
Yeah.
long were you there? So you said high school in Hawaii, and then how soon did you leave?
Yeah, so high school, went to a boarding high school on another island. I grew up on Kauai and then went over to Oahu for high school. And that already was a huge shift for me in pacing because Oahu is like the LA of Hawaii, basically. There's a, I think Hawaii has, I think it's like 80,000 inhabitants, and then Oahu has like a million. So it's just a completely different pacing already. And that was really great for me, honestly. It was kind of the momentum that I was craving, and also just a huge, like, growth point there. I moved out of the house at 12 and moved into the dorms at 13. Or I guess, yeah, I was 12 turning 13. And yeah, those 4 years at boarding school was, yeah, it almost felt like just like doing university or college at just a younger age. And so then after graduating high school, I knew I immediately wanted to move to LA. So I moved out there. I think I was 17 turning 18 at that time, and yeah, that was when it all started.
That's crazy. That's crazy I'm sure even talking about at a young age going to a boarding school, kind of from that independence, and even, yeah, I'm sure you were able to build confidence at a young age to be able to, not only sell lemonade, but to then go to the school on your own, and then probably give you the confidence to go to LA. Was that a big transition for you from where you were to where you went?
Yeah, I think I felt really prepared and excited. I think it was more of a adjustment for my family to take on, for me to be moving away and to be going to a big city, and like I'd never even driven on a freeway before. And so there was just a lot of big shifts coming from such a small island life, but I don't know, I think I felt very prepared and like excited for it.
I love that. I love that. And so kind of today, and we'll kind of like we'll share what you're doing today, but kind of we'll fill in the gaps. Is you moved to LA and had aspirations, and what did you get into first? Because currently your role is with Kolder Creative. Was there anything in between that you started or that you were a part of before then when you went to
Yeah,
live?
I guess the most significant thing that comes to mind pre-Kolder Creative was a social media management agency that I started. After moving to LA, then started to travel the world and kind of go on this nomadic lifestyle, and was learning how to use social media as a way of business and making money. And so I started that as I was traveling, and then moved back to Hawaii in 2019. And around that time, I started working with small businesses there. And yeah, the focus was on the agency. And that was like my first experience with freelancing and working for myself, but also then slowly, hiring my friends and building a small team at the time to start to scale that business. And then around 2020, like right in the mix of COVID, I decided to close down what I was doing there and seek out something different. And then that's kind of when the transition to Kolder Creative happened.
Wow. And before we go to that's interesting. Were you kind of the one-stop shop at first, or did you immediately, when you started that agency, hire friends to do the work, or were you actually with the camera, with the phone, getting content? Like, how did that work at first?
Yeah, for the first year, it was just me. And I was, yeah, one-stop shop. I was doing the content, I was managing the branding, and the accounts themselves and, doing the commenting and all of that and communicating. So a little bit of like customer service and all of it. But yeah, at first it was just me. And then about a year in, I had taken on enough clients that I was like maxed out for myself, but I knew there was a lot more interest there. And I also just had bigger dreams for what I wanted that agency to be. And that's when I knew like if I bring someone on, that's where I can like have that support to feel confident enough to do more than what I'm capable of. So
I think that's a big point, like that we're going to get to, and I really want to dig into that. But I feel like there's so many creators, myself even personally, filmmakers, creatives, freelancers who are, may have found their groove where they're getting the clients, they're getting the work. And at first, that's the first step of, doing well with one brand, and then, referrals start happening. But that you were able to recognize that like I'm maxed out and I need to bring someone on. Like, was there a defining moment where you're like, this is too much, or was it more, it was just kind of a feeling of experimentation of bringing someone on for like one project and it became something more?
yeah, it wasn't, I don't recall it being something where I was too maxed out, but it was just this um, craving of wanting support. And I think I also have always really enjoyed kind of taking the role of leadership and being able to orchestrate things a little bit more zoomed out just to support that bigger vision. And so having somebody, I think like I was telling you the other day, like having somebody to show up and be like this motivation and also the support to just get whatever done that was needed in the business at the time was so like the best thing I could have done, really. And that's like the advice that I give to everyone who's just starting out or has a business that they've just started, but they need an extra push or they just feel stuck. And like I'm like hire some help, like bring someone on as like even just an accountability, like to having somebody else there that cares about the project is so helpful.
I can't
Yeah.
imagine just like you said, having someone in the space, and you even mentioned like, okay, I'm working on this. If they're here, it even gives me more encouragement to like have something ready for them,
Yeah.
and it gets you on your game. And digging into that a little more even now is like, how did you trust? Like, I think that's a big thing with like creatives, or at least for me, that perfectionist
Yeah.
in me. It's like, oh, I want my work to be, the same across the board. And how did you trust? Is it like, how do you find that person?
Yeah.
Was it a friend at first? Like, what did that look like for the first hire you ever made?
Yeah, so for the first hire, it was a friend of mine. Actually, for all of the people that came on to that agency team were friends of mine. And I feel like, that can be quite controversial. Some people are like, no, don't work with your friends, like keep those boundaries and keep things separate. But for me, I felt safer making that choice because I felt like I already knew like I knew them well enough that I kind of was able to spot out, oh, I really like their drive, or they have a really good eye, and like I already kind of saw their strengths and qualities, and then it was just about having that conversation, like, hey, I would really love for you to be a part of this if you have interest, and how do you feel about it, and just kind of um, organizing an agreement from there. Like I said, since I was young, being so entrepreneurial, like I just kind of walk and represent business at all times. So I think my friends were already used to me already talking about the projects that I was working on and just being very work focused all the time anyways. So they would always, be giving me feedback or tips already. So I was just like, this works so well, and I think if I'm giving tips for other people, that I don't see any harm in hiring your friends, especially if they're passionate about similar things and have the same drive. Then I think it works out as a benefit for sure. But yeah, as far as the like actual process of things, it was writing out on paper what the agreements were, what the responsibilities and expectations were, and then kind of just taking it from there and still like moving at a slow pace, especially when you're just starting out. You don't really have like a timeline and a structure and really even know what's going to be next. So to just like give them a pamphlet of like, this is exactly what you're going to be doing each week, like you don't really know. So I think it's important to hire someone or to bring someone on who's open minded and like patient and understands that it's just at the starting point, and they're just like open to working with you with whatever tasks are needed that day. So really, it's kind of like I think a personal assistant role in the beginning is really great because you don't really know what you're doing. So somebody who's just willing to help you with anything is key.
That first person, kind of like a catch-all. Um, I think that's perfect. Even like in a situation where I'm in, like I'm feeling overloaded and I need someone who not only could potentially do some basic editing, but also come with me on a project. And so you would recommend having like someone who could kind of be open. And the main thing, what I want to ask you is like expectations. I'm sure you have to be very clear up front of like where you're at and their expectations. If you want to talk about that at all, about setting the tone before they come on, and also the length. You mentioned that on our hike of like how you start this out. So it's not just you're committing to 5 years with me, but like how do you kind of present that to
The
somebody?
speed bumps or the
Yeah. Yes.
milestones. Okay, so as far as expectations go, yeah, I think trying to be as clear as possible, but like I said, I think going with a personal assistant tone is really helpful because then that remains quite open for like, I just need you to help me with what tasks come up that day. And obviously you'll have a theme or a niche of what that is, especially if it's filmmaking or video editing. I'm assuming you're probably going to bring someone on who has a background in those skills, hopefully. But one thing I just say in general for hiring somebody is when hiring, especially an assistant, I'm always looking for, are they making your life like more complicated or are they helping you clear your plate? And so the biggest trait I'm always looking for is how proactive are they? Like, are they able to manage themselves and create tasks for themselves? Or is it kind of just like waiting to be led? That sometimes is nice, but more times than not, if my headspace is somewhere else, it's so helpful knowing like I have a person on my team who's just noticing what else can be done. Otherwise, that manager role, kind of takes up my time to be doing other things. And so, yeah, looking for somebody to be proactive is a huge quality that I look for. And then as far as the milestones and the speed bumps, I would recommend starting out with, writing it all on paper, getting an agreement of what the expectations are, the responsibilities, even if it's just like, hey, I want you to come in Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 to 5 just to start out and or 9 to 3 even, maybe it's not a full day, but just to get a feeling of what things are like. And I usually like to do like a 1-month trial. That way, and you can be super transparent up front, like, hey, I'm really particular about who I work with, and I don't want there to be any, I was going to say hurt feelings or offense, but really just wanting to make sure this is a fit for the both of us, and we're both feeling really good about this. So I want to set a 1-month container, and we can check back in at that point and review and just see how we're both feeling on things. And then if that's feeling great, we can do another, what I like to do is like another 3-month trial from there. I always say like hiring people it's very much like dating. Like you got to pace yourself and get to know them. You can't really I always like raise caution around making like big commitments too soon because you need time to get to know each other and see if you work well together. And there's so much communication involved, and do your communication styles align? Like there's so many things that only time can help you figure out. So I highly recommend doing those time blocks and those milestones really.
It's super helpful, and I think it's a more bite-sized chunk to be able to embark if you're the creator or if you're the solo entrepreneur or freelancer, to be able to say like, okay, this doesn't have to be this 5-year commitment and I'm paying a full salary and benefits, all these things. It could just be a 1-month trial period, and then if that goes well, 3 months, and you kind of build from there. And you mentioned a little bit, but like you mentioned retainer. Would you recommend, I guess it depends on the situation, but like a monthly retainer for this person, or is it more kind of like project by project? Is that situational? Like how would you approach that?
Yeah, I would say it's very circumstantial, or like it just depends on what the business is and what the dynamic is. I would say with if you're bringing someone on who maybe has a skill set in the niche or the business that you're doing, but you're wanting them to come on more as a assistant to just help with anything day to day, then you can agree on a retainer. But if it's, like you were saying with weddings or projects that you're, or certain clients that you're working with at certain times, then I can also see how per project makes sense. But what I always recommend is try to get a gauge of what they're like, if they can make a proposal that you can work with, and then take your time, looking at what they propose and see if that feels good to you, or you can offer, a different dynamic or counter, their numbers depending on what they offer, and just kind of do a little dance. I find that always happens when you're bringing someone on, is you want to make sure that you're being fair and everyone's feeling good. Another thing that I always say is, like, with those reviews, with that 1 month check-in, with those 3 months, that 3 month check-in, that's another time where we can also discuss compensation and if it's still feeling fair, or hey, I'm actually working way more than what we've agreed on, or actually I'm working half as much as we've agreed on, and maybe we need to adjust and cut down on the pay, or whatever it may be. So
That's great.
that's another reason why those are so crucial, the checkpoints.
Because it even gives expectations on their end, on your end, of like having a, not necessarily a finish line, but a checkpoint, like you said, of like, okay, we can get to here and then we can talk about it, see how it went, and move forward. Yeah. So nothing's up in the air. This is just huge for me personally, just getting to get these tips. And for anyone out there who is solo, I know that feeling of feeling overwhelmed, or I have these ideas, but having someone, it sounds like through experience, you've experienced so much fruit from that. And so taking that, those lessons you learned, going back to your story, from that social media agency, you moved back to Hawaii, and what was that next opportunity, and how did you maybe use those skills to bring into your next role?
Yeah, so then after deciding to move away from social media management, I was kind of between jobs and just figuring out what I wanted to do next. And then at that time was when I linked up with Sam, and he had just launched the first iteration of the course. And I flew out to Bali and we met up. And at that point, I didn't really know what my involvement was going to be with KC, but I decided to just kind of dip my toes in and figure out what was set up currently at that time. And yeah, I had found that it was really just at the place of being a course. There were, a few team members on at the time who were supporting Sam in the project, but it was kind of, up in the air as to where things were going. And at that point, I didn't really have clarity on what I was going to be doing with Casey, but I just knew that there was a lot of potential there. Yeah.
Gosh, I can't imagine, like, stepping into this and figuring it out. How did you have like an aha moment of like, wait, this could be something much bigger than just like a one time, throw it up there, put a post about it, join it, and then kind of forget about it? What was that moment for you, and how did you like propose that, like, that there was something more here?
Yeah, okay, so I think my favorite thing with anyone's business is I love just checking out, like, oh, what's your website look like? What's the framework look like? And from there, at the time, we had our website on just like a one-pager. I think it was like ClickFunnels or something. And then it would take you to a course program. I think at the time it was Thinkific. And so I was just like, okay, immediately I wanted to organize things and make it feel a bit more tightly knit. And so I began focusing on the website. And as I was focused on that part of the business, I just started to get to know more of the team that was already involved and the potential as far as the community side. And yeah, I think there was a time where, like, if I'm looking at that milestone point, it was having a conversation with Sam on, okay, what is your vision here with this? And I just said, I really think this could be more than a course. And then we kind of ran with that tagline for a while of like, okay, this is more than a course. And it's really, the team coming together is going to be focused for supporting the community in more ways than the education, which obviously is amazing. But we just got so excited about the opportunity side and the jobs and the things that could help our members go from being educated to actually taking those lessons and using it in real life and in their passions. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm living proof of seeing the fruit of that of being more than a course, because I kind of saw it as that at the beginning, and I probably joined early on, but I saw real time it evolve into more community focused, opportunities through the contest, and it's really become a global community, which is really cool to see. And we're living proof of this conversation right here, that it's bigger than just something online, highlighting that even in this world that we live in now with social media, everything's online, it can become empty. But like if you're just in your room just scrolling, but like tying it back, using it as a tool to bring people together in person, not only teach them something valuable, but have opportunities to connect, is like incredible. So I just want to affirm what y'all are doing, no, for real, and your role to see that. Because I think a lot of people, and this goes back to the theme of this podcast, Carpe Momentum, seizing the moment. It's one thing to have an idea, it's one thing to see an opportunity, but it's another to take action. And I feel like you're a testament of that, of taking action. And so you said, like, with that moment of like, this could be something more, did it start with just, like you said, like optimizing the website? Let's think about an event. What were those conversations? How did it shift from course to community?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, appreciate those words, but really, like, I cannot take all the credit for that. That really came from the team working together as a whole. Like, that's one of the most beautiful parts of working with this company or business, is everyone brings their skills to the table, and that's what makes Casey. It's definitely not all me, it's not all Sam, it's the whole of the team. And yeah, that's definitely what makes it special. But remind me the question,
And
sorry.
so, well, with that, and the question was of like, my bad, bringing it to a community. And I guess, I mean, this connects it all together, but you stepped into KC and you saw the opportunity this could be bigger. And maybe that started with what you mentioned, the team. How did you use that experience of building the team to create the support to make this more than a course? Like, even if it's per se hiring members or seeing needs that needed to be filled, to create, like, how do you foster a community in a sense, like, did it start with building the team and then having the support to make that happen?
Yeah, I think when I jumped on, yeah, main focus was starting with the website, but then also starting to learn the skills of the people that were already involved, and then figure out where the missing gaps were and what we needed to kind of build, like I was calling it, the toolbox team, or in a sense, the engine to really have the company circulating and running smoothly. And it was so much trial and error, the past 3-4 years of, a lot of trying things out. Okay, not the best fit, needing to exit out of that, from different financial support accountants and all kinds of different roles that go on behind the scenes. But as far as in the front facing, we have Peter running the community side, and we have Jordan with the partnerships, and they've been on since day one. And yeah, we started to just refine what do we want the community offerings to look like, from, online events to Jordan really starting to work with the partnerships. That was a huge evolution that we didn't actually see coming initially, until we were like, wow, this is so perfect. Sam was in a place where he was no longer interested in taking on all of the jobs that were coming his way. And we felt like, wow, this is a perfect funnel. Now we have this school and so many driven members who are, so passionate and would just die to have some of these jobs. And so we started implementing the contests, and that's where we saw this funnel of, okay, the brands didn't really know the skill sets of the members, so we had to find a way to introduce the two in a way, and help the members, present their work and get noticed, but at the same time, the brand then being able to see, who felt like a good fit to work together. And that's something that we've watched evolve, and it's been incredible to see how the contests have impacted the community. I think that's like one of the key things that happens within KC that people are just so stoked about. And yeah, I think that that was a really cool thing to watch evolve. And it's still evolving, especially in the sense that now it's been around for, I think we're at 4 years. And we know a lot of the members and their skill sets now, and jobs are coming in, and Jordan's able to just directly funnel those opportunities to the members. And we've created some really cool opportunities with travel and members flying out to all different parts of the world and getting to work with these name brands in the industry. So watching that evolve, I don't know if that exactly answered the question, but
That does,
watching
that
that evolve.
does. No, it's cool to see that, okay, what is that connection, like you said, of like, okay, this opportunity with brand partnerships, we have this community, we just got to create that middle ground in a contest for them to see the work, for the creators to create. It's like a perfect idea. So it's really cool to see the innovation, to see that happen. And now, like you said, it's like a thriving community where it's not just a course, but there's actual connections to say like, oh, this person would be great for this. Like, hey, and you're kind of like the middleman in a sense of, there's so many talented creators everywhere, but this is a hub, a space to connect, to learn, and also for opportunity. So that's really cool to see the evolution of it. And so with that, kind of how has your role evolved? And like you said, like maybe at first you're a lot more in the weeds and now kind of more of a leadership role. How would you say personally your role has evolved, and what does it kind of look like today?
Yeah, okay. So in the start it was, yeah, I guess team management and development, really finding like, you know, the skills and strengths of the current member, or sorry, not members, but team members, and assigning more clear and defined roles. Because like I said, and that's just the beauty of startups and the beginning stages of a business, is everyone's doing a lot of everything, and it can be really frustrating at first and messy and just unclear. But I think one of the things when I first stepped in was getting to really make some clean definitions of who does what and how we work together and who goes to who for what. And it was a lot of work kind of mapping that all out. But once that got a little bit more defined, I was able to see those missing gaps and try and bring on and test out, the roles for things that were missing. And again, that was just trial and error. And eventually we got to a place where, yeah, our core team just felt really solid. And fortunately enough, it was mostly like friends and partners, and we're really, like, I call it the biz fam. We all know each other and are really good friends with each other, whether we've had a history. Sam and Peter have known each other since they were little kids, and Jordan's been working with Sam from the beginning, and then his partner Natasha coming on to run our social media and emails and all of the marketing side. So it all just kind of worked and just clicked, and it was hard to believe. I think I mentioned on the trails, it was, that was really where I was looking at those milestones and those checkpoints, because it was scary to bring on couples and close friends, because if it didn't work, like, it was just going to be a really uncomfortable situation to have to undo those ties. But it ended up working out, and yeah, it became a really, really special group of humans for sure. But what my role looks like now, yeah, it's definitely a lot more zoomed out. The team it just feels like a lot more of a well-oiled machine at this point. I'm so grateful to be at a place where I've been able to zoom out and watch the business run itself. And yeah, it's it's a special milestone to be at, where we have the freedom to start new endeavors, or I can focus on a new project, or kind of zoom out at the bigger vision and explore new avenues while things are still running. Because when, like you said, when you're in the weeds and there's so much to just do to keep the thing alive, it's so hard to be, ideating or dreaming bigger or looking for new things to add on. So yeah.
Yes, and there's something I want to ask on that. But before, I think that's such a key for someone with a vision, because, personally, from personal experience, I'm definitely in the weeds of a lot of different projects, and And from communication to emails to calling to shooting to editing to it can all become overwhelming. And I've got so many ideas, but I feel like I'm limited because I'm so in the weeds. And so it's taking that step to be able to back up. And so I think that's why your position is so important. Just be able to have someone who's, that it's the phrase working in the business to working on the business. And I feel like you're in that position now where you're really able to work on the business to see the opportunities and to, dream big, which is cool. And with that, I know we talked about it a little bit, but if you wanted to mention a little something that y'all are cooking up in the background, just kind of teasing it out, just the idea, and we don't have to go into too big of details, but what have you been able to with the extra time now? Is there other opportunities that y'all are looking at?
Yeah, definitely. And going back to what I had said earlier on this toolbox team. So when I was putting most of my focus on, figuring that out with Sam, I had said to him, like, the reason I actually came up with that name, the toolbox team, was because I said I want to build a team that not only can support KC, but hopefully can also support our other business ideas and other projects that we want to pursue. And so that was why it, was so important to me to make sure that this core team felt really strong, not just for KC, but for other things that we want to do as well. And yeah, so that kind of sparks up our newest business endeavor, which is a software program we're calling DM. We're feeling very excited about it. It's yet to be publicly released, and it's been quite a learning experience for us. It's actually three co-founders on this project: myself, Sam, as well as our financial accountant for KC, Elliot. And yeah, we're feeling really, really excited about this project. And yeah, I'm trying to think what should I tease about it. It's focused for creators, and it's in the filmmaking, video editing, creator niche. It's anyone with a hard drive, really, is kind of the teaser. But we've been working on that for the past year now. I feel like it's gotten to, and we're hoping to be launching at the end of this year. So that yeah, is proof really that we have gotten to a place where we are able to step back and start new ideas, and keep the engine of KC running, and feeling supported there. So
I
yeah.
love that. I love that. And so this would be, in a sense, like a separate entity of itself.
Yes.
Kind of separate from that, so that it's not like under an umbrella of KC, but it's its own entity.
Yeah, as of right now, it is a separate business, but I do see crossover for sure, especially because it's a school of creators. This is our exact target market with the software. So we hope and assume that it will be really useful to everyone at the school, and we're so excited to hopefully give everyone at KC an early launch to test out the beta and give us feedback on everything. So
Love that. I love that. And I'm just like seeing this from like a meta view, but because I think there's one thing, there's someone with ideas and all of these things going on to where it's kind of like a master of none in a sense, but it's really cool to see even y'all focus on the past 4 years on Kolder Creative. Let's make this the best experience possible. All these offerings, how it's different from a normal course, which then can allow it to open up other opportunities. And even for someone like Sam, like for someone who's pressed into his craft for so many years to a point where he's become a master at editing and filmmaking, to then people think, sometimes whether that's a business, a discipline, a relationship, like that I need to be super open. But if you're able to press in, like it's hard and it's not always easy, but at a certain point it starts to open up even more than you imagine. Even with Sam, like pressing into a discipline to now this course. And then now that y'all press into the course, it's opening up other opportunities of offerings. So I just want to point that out for people who feel like they need to be doing anything and everything. It's okay to zone in on one thing, to allow yourself to then branch out. And I feel like you're a great example of knowing when to bring on help so that you can explore those other opportunities. Because it can be paralyzing if you're just by yourself and you're overwhelmed. And so, yeah, if there's anything you wanted to say now that you're in the position that you are, just talking about the importance of a team, of community, of now that what has been built, how would you encourage others to, because you're on like I feel like the back end of like having a cohesive core team, like you said. And so for the person who's like toying with the idea like myself, what would you tell that person?
Yeah, well, to go back on what you had just said about, it's a good idea to hone in, I'm like, it's not just a good idea, it's
Yeah,
crucial.
okay,
Like, it's
okay.
something that, there's a quote, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so that like focus on one thing at a time is so, so important. And the same motto goes that, we always follow is, quality over quantity, and really just, I don't know if you have to say perfecting the thing, but at least, one thing at a time has seemed to be essential for you know feeling proud of the thing that you're launching and putting out. And then once you're at that place, okay, we can pivot or we can add on. But I think that honing in, especially in the very beginning, is so important. Otherwise, like you said, the overwhelm that happens is just hectic and crazy. And I also wanted to say that, it is a lot of trial and error. And even now, there's still, you know, I mentioned this on the hike as well, of it's sometimes you can go too far where you hire a team and you become too attached to the project. And that's where I think you can also lose touch of what your intention is or what you're trying to create. I've seen that go the other way, where you bring on too many people and distance yourself from the project. And that was something that was a really interesting dance for Sam and I, was looking at the project with Casey, bringing on a team of 8 to 10 people, but then at the same time still having to put our hands in literally everything. Nothing would go live until him and I both, or at least one of us, had reviewed, the copy, the email, the social media caption. Like, it takes a really, really long time to get to a place where you're not having to at least make those tweaks, to hold the essence of whatever that brand is that you're trying to develop. And so it's so important not to lose that, and to, I guess, not get lazy in a sense of, oh, okay, I've brought on this team, and zoom out, because then you might turn around and be like, oh, wait, this doesn't feel like me or my brand. And so it's a dance, and it can be frustrating. You're like, oh, I have this team. Why am I still doing all of these things? Why am I up at midnight editing, an email or a social media caption? Like, but it's all just like part of the process, and eventually you will get there. And it's a really rewarding feeling to finally get to a place where your team knows the brand. And we were all also just learning as we were going, including myself. So it's just a process.
I love it. And you're talking about, in essence, like the culture, like having your hand on, yeah, what is the feeling? What are we portraying as a team, as a group? And like you said, just through time, through iteration, through revision, you're better able to know your person, your team, your message. And so I think that's very important. Like you said, it can go to different spectrums, because if you bring too many people too soon, you kind of lose that. You lose that uniqueness, the touch. And so it goes back to the speed bumps of having some things in place to check in on that, whether that's with the first person and then the second, and then having times of coming together. Just one question on the team before we transition out of what's like next for you, but with a team, how often do y'all like practically like meet? Or do y'all have like weekly checkups, or is it monthly? Like with a team from 8 to 10, what does that look like? Or is it more sectioned off and different, like you said, hierarchies or groups that kind of meet together? How does that look?
Yeah, so we've all evolved in different ways. And with KC, the business has grown and expanded and then shrunk, and there's been a ton of different iterations and evolutions of KC itself. But as of right now, one of the core things that I have realized is so important for me to stick to, because there was a point where I kind of laxed on the check-ins and the reviews, but I've realized that they're so essential for the team, even if we're at a place where it's running smoothly. So one of the things I still have implemented is a 6-month check-in. So with all of the team, I do those, and it's such a great like oil check really for the team, to just do a one-on-one and see how they're feeling. And also what I'll do is I'll pull up their agreement or their contract, and I'll make a little I have like a key of colors from red, green, yellow, or red, yellow, green. Red meaning like it's not happening at all, or they're not doing, like, they're not performing on that responsibility well. Yellow is like so, it's happening maybe, but not to the level that I want it at. And green is like you're flying colors, you're excelling. And so, yeah, I'll go through that and kind of pinpoint. And sometimes it's like red is like, oh, I forgot that we even had this on the agreement. Are we still doing this? Is this, how do we feel about this? It's not supposed to feel just like a report card. It's really just a check-in because things just get lost. You might have that day where you're like confidently writing out your your contracts and your agreements, and then when you get into the day-to-day, like you're not remembering what that like bulleted list of expectations looks like. So that review is so crucial and helpful for everyone really. And then again, that's also a time where the conversation of, does the compensation feel right? Is everyone feeling good about, where you're at right now, or do we need to adjust things? So that has been crucial. But as far as the team, we have some who are full-time core. We talk almost every day, and then some once a week or once every 2 weeks, or even just once a month for like a reporting call or a review. So yeah, it's a fluctuation of all of it, but I cannot recommend the 6 month check-in enough. I mean, that goes also, like I said, teams are just like relationships, like just in the same way with your partner, like doing those check-ins and like, how's our communication working? What's working for you? What's not? What are your blockers? Like all of those things are just so helpful to make the day-to-day more smooth. And we're still humans. We're not robots at the end of the day. And so having those conversations of like, hey, how you did that thing, it didn't really work out. How you communicated that didn't really work for me. And like having those moments to check in on that versus being in like the day to day and they're like holding a grudge because they're upset about something that happened. So I think that creating containers for those conversations to happen, so important. And I'll just add on one other thing too, is they're important also not just for 6 month check-ins, but if something happens. And that's something that we're implementing, or something that we do now in the business, where if something happens that like didn't run as smoothly, and I didn't feel so good about it, or someone didn't feel good about it, it's essential that we schedule a quick call to all touch base and communicate how we feel and just like get it out on the table to maintain, yeah, a healthy working team and a healthy working relationships, really. It's wild how much like interpersonal communication and knowledge around like psychology comes into play, because I've also done the latter where we we have maybe a little text conversation on it. Okay, we'll do better next time, and we move on. But I think it kind of still was festering in the underneath, and there was more that needed to be really acknowledged and communicated of like, next time this is the ideal scene of how we should do this. And yeah, so open communication as much as possible. You can never go wrong.
I love that. I mean, I think it's so important because, like you said, we're humans. Like, this is a team, a business. Of course, we have goals. Of course, we're going here, but it's dynamic, it's complex. And having those check-ins, like you said, we're not robots. Yeah. That face-to-face, I think, is so important to create a thriving. And if you strengthen those relationships, that trust, that openness, the communication, I feel like the business in itself will be more equipped to thrive, because there aren't grudges, there aren't, behind the back, and people are more excited to be a part of the team. So that's really cool. Yeah. And then kind of as we're wrapping up, I do have a final question, but before that, is there anything else that you're just excited about with where you are, anything on the horizon for you, for KC, if there's anything that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, well, in the right now, we're working on the first ever KC. We're calling it Camp KC. Well, initially we started out with the meetup. So this is I was going to say a multi-day meetup, but it's really like a multi-day workshop creator meetup experience for us all to get together and spend a few days together. I'm feeling really, really excited about it because, yeah, the meetups, when I look back on last year, the 2 meetups were such huge highlights of the year, for so many reasons. Like just seeing where the company is now and seeing all the members in real life and repping the merch and just really bringing it to life, has just brought so much joy and really made the business feel so real, because you're working on your laptop, and then in day-to-day life you're not really around that community. So being in real life has just been, yeah, so rewarding. And we found also that the meetups, that people were flying out for just a few hour event. So we were like, all right, maybe we need to shift this a bit. And so we're doing a multi-day kind of retreat experience, and feeling very excited about that. So that's kind of like on the, horizon of this summer. And then, yeah, I guess aside from that, we have, I think one thing we're really looking at with KC and where it's evolving now is, like I touched on earlier, the evolution of from contests to jobs and opportunities, and utilizing this plethora of opportunity that Jordan has touch with, and finding a way to really create a circular economy of sorts with, kind of an agency concept is something we've been ideating for a while now. We just see that as something that's really present, and we're watching all of the members evolve and grow into these really capable and extremely talented editors like yourself, and finding ways that we can like grow with them, because we've taken it to this place where it was like, we don't know you guys, let's see your stuff. That's where the contest came to play. And now we've evolved to this place of like, we do know the skill level, and how do we utilize this beyond the contests? I feel like the contests are really just this introduction point for us. So yeah, there's definitely some ideating and some excitement, and figuring out where we can take that next evolution. It's yet to get to a place where we have, something I can announce, but it's on our minds, and yeah, we're feeling excited about that.
That's amazing. First off, thank you for that comment, but it's also just cool to see again the opportunity. I love that you're in that position of kind of that middle man, middle woman in between kind of the creator and the opportunity, and like pairing them together, because it's such a value, because that's what a lot of creators like myself, they're looking for opportunity, and they're looking for to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And so just want to affirm you all again for what you're doing, what you're working on. And even just this conversation, it's really interesting and exciting to hear the back end of what it takes to bring a vision to life. And you're doing that day by day. You're building the team, you're helping with the vision, you're looking at new opportunities. And so this is encouraging for myself as a solo freelancer, and I know it'll be encouraging for a lot of people. Before we close out, I have one question that I ask every guest, and it comes back to even the brand itself of Carpe Momentum, and it means seize the moment. And so kind of in your own words, what does seizing the moment mean to you?
I think what comes to mind right now is I've been thinking a lot about fear, and how much all of us are just consumed in that in the day to day. And even just in having this conversation together, we both talked about, like, Daniel and I were so nervous.
I know. We're doing it.
To be clear, we were very scared about
Yes.
this.
We're being honest, real. Come on.
And yeah, I think facing your fears is what comes up for me with seizing the moment. And it is so true that the things behind your fears are usually like the best things in life. And yeah, I think doing those things that scare you a little, and you feel like you're taking that leap. One of my favorite terms right now is fail forward. Like you can't go wrong. Just like fail fast, and just, that's what will get you to, yeah, accomplishing your dreams, as cheesy as it sounds.
No, I love that. Yeah, through the action, because it's so easy to just play it over and over in our mind, even this conversation for both of us. But even, I'll just say it outright. This has been an incredible conversation, an incredible insight that I know other people will take with them going forward. And so getting over ourselves, getting over the kind of imaginary fear, and stepping in through action, seizing your moment. You did that today.
Yeah.
You're doing that. ultimately will provide service and value to so many other people. So I appreciate it. Thank you for your time in this conversation, and I'm really excited to see you continue to grow in your journey with Kolder Creative, with all the ideas and dreams that you have, because again, I think it takes one thing to have those ideas, but it takes another to take action, to seize their moment, and you're doing that. So thank you, Kai, for your time.
Thank you, Daniel, and I'm so excited to see what evolves with Carpe Momentum. I think it's such a great concept, and yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, we'll see you next time.
Let's go!